is it? What time is it? What time is it?
Welcome to Talking About Sports, the Carolina's #1 podcast. We're number one, not just because I say so, because you make us number one. All-star panel, as always. Mike Freer, one of our senior researchers. John Tobias on assignment in the subcontinent this week, along with Mike Pacheco doing Winthrop basketball and the Carolina Panthers. Reggie Walker from Penn State, that's on a losing streak, I might add. And our main man, Charles Arbuckle, former Indianapolis Colt and UCLA Bruin. Guys, Carolina Panthers looks like or seemingly have righted the ship, and it seems like they've also incorporated Christian McCaffrey into the offense. Charles, let's start down on the end. Charles, what do you think of the Carolina Panthers and seemingly the unstoppable Christian McCaffrey?
Well, I think they've been trying to do it all year, and when you get into the league, I think no matter how good you are in college, you still have to become a better pro and understand the pro game. I think that's the one thing. As talented as Christian is, he's still a rookie. And I think now he's starting to understand the angles, starting to understand everything. And I think what they're doing a better job of is getting him involved in spurts instead of trying to do it all the time. And I still want to see more Curtis Samuel, but I think those two guys add a dimension of speed to this offense, and you want to see that more. And I think that you're going to see it as it goes down throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think to that point, the thing that, and obviously there was a lot of scuttlebutt about the Kelvin Benjamin trade, and I even questioned the timing of it myself because I thought it was kind of weird. I feel like, you kind of know what you have with all those guys that have really kind of been in your program and your system. But the thing that struck me watching this offense this past week was the diversity in it. We saw a little bit more of, obviously, the design quarterback runs. We saw some zone read. We saw some reverses. We saw a lot of diversity. And the interesting thing about that to me is none of the pieces that you did these things with were different or guys that you didn't have before last week.
Yeah.
So to me, it's incumbent on the coaching staff and on the offensive coordinator in particular, and I'm not maligning Mike Shula here, but what I am saying is the game plan and the play calling should be that diverse on a consistent basis. And if that means it had to be quote-unquote obvious if you took Kelvin Benjamin off the field that you were going to do something either down the field or some kind of a reverse or whatever, then so be it. You can't be locked into, well, I can't take him off the field, which means I can't run this or that play. You have to diversify your offense regardless.
One thing, too, with Kelvin Benjamin, I think the biggest issue every year was he was coming in out of shape. He would get in shape, and then the injuries. And this crew now that are the guys that are running the player personnel department and scouting, that he's not one of their guys.
Right.
So I think that's where you look at it too. You make the decision, will it make the offense play better? 1 week is not enough of a sample size to say that, but I think I did see more out of this offense than I have in the weeks before that.
It's funny, but you mentioned the offense and how diversified and everything it was. You look at the box score, only 3 guys caught passes last week.
Right.
It's kind of remarkable that they all had at least 4 or 5 catches. But McCaffrey is really, it's an opportunity. Clearly, getting rid of Benjamin presented an opportunity for McCaffrey to really be used more. And the number of touches he's getting on a regular basis is Antonio Brown. He's, I think, 7th or 8th in the league in touches, by a running back.
You guys bring up a good point. I'll tell you one guy we haven't talked much about because we don't talk tight ends a lot, but Ed
Absolutely.
Dixon is the guy. The reason why they could get rid of Kelvin Benjamin is because he's second among NFL tight ends with 20-plus catches, averaging about 15.9 yards per catch.
Yeah.
So to me, Benjamin is a big receiver. Ed Dixon is a true tight end.
Correct.
You move the tight end, and he's able to average 16 yards per catch, and you don't have Greg Olsen. That's why they could do that.
I agree.
Do you think the fact that they're going to get Olsen back, Cam only threw the ball 24 times last week, I think it was a season low, do you think they're getting ready just to, whenever they get everybody healthy, they're just going to pound it like they did in 2015, just pound it into you with Stewart?
With who?
I think they'd like to.
Who are they going to pound it with?
I think they'd like to. Here's what I'll say about Stu, and I know a lot of people are all over Stu right now, to your point, Kev, bringing up Stu.
I didn't bring him up. I'm just saying who are they going to pound it with? The guy that fumbled twice last week that hadn't gotten any yards all year?
You're right. He struggled all year, and he did fumble it twice. But what I will say is everybody has bad games. We saw Andy Dalton had a 5-interception performance. Now, I'm not suggesting
He's had several.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that that's who Andy Dalton is, and I'm not suggesting that this is exactly who Stewart is in terms of the fumbles. He does have to hold on to the football. But I think right now with this offensive line not playing great football consistently, I think that goes back to the diversity of the offense. And one of the things I think this offense needs to add to the repertoire consistently is the screen game, because I think that slows down pass rushes for defensive lines, and it creates a little bit of thought process. So if you run the screen game a little bit more, I think it helps your offensive line and it opens your offense up. And I think you can run the screen game with Stu as well.
Well, indeed, but Buck, you're on the for college anyway, the John Mackey committee. You're going to have to break out to take an important call here. But I explained to the national radio audience this week while covering this game that the trade of Kelvin Benjamin was in part due to wanting to open up the middle of the field, so when Greg Olsen comes back, the middle of the field is not so crowded, and that the offense under Mike Shula wants to stretch the defense horizontally, and now without Kelvin Benjamin and with Samuels, with Bird and with Kalen Clay and Shepard and these guys, maybe not so much Brenton Burson, but those guys want to stretch the field horizontally and open up the middle of the field. Is that consistent, Buck, with what you're seeing?
I think that's one thing. I also think when you get to a two tight end offense, you make the defense become balanced.
Right.
You can play. They have to show their hand, so it's going to help them. You've got two guys. Dixon's numbers will go down in catches, but he will still provide a threat. So you have two guys in the middle of the field that can work it. I also think Devin Funches coming on was made Kelvin Benjamin a guy that they did not need. So you said something earlier, Freer, that I think is crucial. If the Panthers, and when I've watched them over the last few years, when they stay under that 30 range and Cam having to make attempts, if he can stay under that and he's got a high completion percentage, 65 or 70, they usually do well. And Reggie brought up a great point. There was a screen a few weeks ago because they got away from the screen game.
Yeah, they have.
It can be receiver screen, but the running backs have to be involved.
Yes.
If they keep them involved in the screen game, this offense, that's just like a long handoff. It's a part of the passing numbers, but it's really a rushing attempt.
And I'm to that point, I'm speaking of Christian McCaffrey in particular. And I don't mean this in a disparaging way.
You were somewhat down on the Pac-12, Reggie. You have been somewhat.
I've never accused
not
that
there's a guy
defense
next to you who's an all Pac-12 great.
They play
now.
defense out there, but sometimes it's optional for some teams.
Right. I mean, it's not as bad as the Big 12, but that's a whole other discussion. Sorry, Freer. I love you, but I had to be truthful.
It's close.
But
Big 12's a little down outside of Wisconsin lately.
I like what Christian McCaffrey brings to this team, but let me say this really succinct. I don't think he can be a focal point, but I think he's definitely a piece. And what I mean by that is to make a rookie running back the focal point of an offense, I think is dangerous. I think that's putting a lot on a young player.
Ezekiel Elliott proved that wrong last year.
Well, but that's in the pure running game. I'm talking about as the way they use Christian. That's too much to be a focal point. And at the end of the day, Cam Newton, he just has to play. He's got to stop thinking and be a decisive football player and just make your read, make the throw, make your read, and take off.
And he also needs to learn that the Titanic sank. So let's not try to keep going like the Titanic. We're just getting started. We've got one segment in the books. We're going to come back with more Panther talk. The Dolphins are up next. We've got college football, college basketball, boxing, and much, much more on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
We're talking about sports on
We're talking about sports at ADS. I don't know how to say that.
We're talking about
sports in, oh God, I forgot.
ADSN.
What is it?
ADSN.
ADSN, okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about sports.
Talking about sports.
We're talking about sports.
Talking sports.
Talking about sports. We're talking about sports on ADSN.
Talking about sports on ADSN.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill, home of beer cheese from Wisconsin. My man, Bucky Badger himself, James King, has got me hooked on it. I'm now a big Badger fan now because of the beer cheese from James. But Charles, you were talking about the Panther offense and the stretch horizontally, the tight end play specifically. What if maybe to the person that may not understand, what were you specifically talking about?
One last thing with that, maybe with two tight ends, it'll help invert the rushing stats. Cam is averaging 5 yards a carry, which is really high for a quarterback. We know he can do that. The other two running backs, whether it's McCaffrey or Stewart, 3.0 yards per carry. That's not high enough.
No.
They've got to be in that other range. So hopefully when you get two tight ends back, or maybe even an H-back leading. Reggie was talking about this as a perfect point. You've got to have somebody in that backfield to provide.
We did see Carolina use number 40 as an H-back with Ed Dixon.
Yeah, but I think when Dixon is the second tight end, he may slide into that slot. You got to have somebody that can lead and just get in there and get uproot the linebacker crew to give a guy.
Fullbacks used to be part of everyone's offense. I mean, you think back to some great fullbacks. I mean, Don Nottingham.
H-backs have become the new fullbacks. We've had that since the '80s, so that's changed.
I like the old Redskin offense with the '80s. Don Warren, Clinton Didier. That was always pretty successful.
Doc Walker, buddy of mine.
Doc Walker, both of our buddies. Reggie, defensively, a lot of people contend Carolina's defense, and obviously it helps having Luke Kuechly back on the field, but you look at Thomas Davis, Shaq Thompson in pass coverage looking good. The corners, Worley, Bradbury, Coleman at safety. These guys, and I think the pass rush even may not have gotten the sacks per se, but they got a lot more pressure this week. What do you see from the defense so far?
Yeah, well, what I like about this defense is and it's something that's going to be a factor going into the game on Monday night is, listen, this defense does not allow a lot of big plays, especially in the passing game. So if they can keep Landry and Parker in front of them and minimize those shot plays, that's what this defense does best. They keep things in front of them. They rally to the football. I'll tell you right now, it is a clinic tape watching the Carolina Panthers get to the football when the ball is caught or when a ball carrier breaks the line of scrimmage. You see 11 hats flying to the football, and that's one of the biggest pieces of having a championship defense. Just guys that want to get there and want to make plays. And then the other piece of it, the defensive line has done an excellent job this year, whether it's been Peppers, whether it's been Addison, KK Short. Stars played well in some spots as well. You can go all the way down the list with this defensive front. And Charles, we talk about it all the time. Freer, you've heard me say this a million times. If you can't win in the trenches, you can't win a championship.
Oh, absolutely.
And this defense can win in the trenches.
Offensive line, defensive line.
Offensive line, defensive line. If you can't win there, you're not going to win. That's what Alabama's been doing for years at the college level. That's what, when you look at teams that have had dominant stretches in the NFL, the Cowboys in the 90s, the 49ers had their stretch as well. All of these teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers, when they've had consistent runs of championship caliber play, it's been predicated on great defensive and offensive lines. And I feel like the Panthers, especially on the defensive side of the ball, have that right now. The only thing I would say that the biggest thing that they need to fix that's blatantly obvious, this is a team that's 6-3 through 9 games, and they're -8 in the turnover margin. When they went to the Super Bowl, that margin was almost complete opposite, and I think it was a little bit higher than that.
Is there still
like +10?
Is there still a missing person alert out for Vernon Butler, former #1 draft pick? I haven't seen much of him.
No, I wouldn't say a missing person alert. The problem is KK's playing well, Star's playing well, Addison's playing well, Pep's playing well. All of a sudden, you got all these guys playing well.
Kyle Love looks good.
Kyle Love's playing well. Where do you find the rotation?
You got to get him in there.
When you have 9 defensive linemen, and really, you could say 7 to 8 of them are playing well.
Star's a pending free agent.
Right, and he's in a contract year, so he's going to play hard.
Absolutely.
So all of a sudden, you look up, and Vernon Butler, not in a negative way, he's just kind of the odd man out because guess what? They control him a little bit longer.
You mentioned turnovers, 16 this year for the Panthers. 2 years ago, they go to the Super Bowl. They had 19 the whole year. Mm-hmm. So they're -8 in the turnover margin, like you say, that's near the bottom. That's really the biggest issue they got going that I can see.
Freer, you bring up a great point. Being around Tony Dungy when he was with the Indianapolis Colts, his biggest thing was if we get 40 takeaways every year and we minimize ours, then we win. And I think that's the key. The other thing is, I'll say this, and I love telling this story. I remember coming back from Boston College watching Luke Kuechly. I think it was his freshman or sophomore year.
Baller.
And then when he got drafted, I remember going to the barbershop. And barbershops, they always know everything, right? Guys told me I was crazy. I said, if that kid comes here, if he stays healthy, he's going to play a long time. Because he knows football. He was always around the football, whether it was interceptions, whether it was tackles. Now, the concussions are one thing. You can't control that. Dan Morgan, we saw that with him. But if you want to talk about a guy that plays and you want to look at a linebacker and how they play, Luke Kuechly is a modern-day version of that.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of good players. And Thomas Davis is not far behind, even though he's aging and has
Speaking of, what about the Dolphin matchup? Dolphins don't look good offensively. They're obviously a rough, dirty, physical team. Dominican Sue and Kiko Alonso, guys who go sometimes beyond the whistle, beyond the rules, and they look like some rule breakers from wrestling. They look like they don't care. They're just playing. Maybe they're still at the fringe of the wild card race. I don't know who's Matt Moore. I guess Jay Cutler's back in the mix. What do you think about the Dolphins?
I think that team, I'll say it like this, and you mentioned him. You mentioned Big and Dominican Sue in the middle. I think between him and Cameron Wake, and I don't say this because it's my old teammate.
Well, Cameron Wake's playing good football.
Yes, he is. And as long as if he can continue to get around the edge and create havoc in backfields and potentially create some turnovers for them, and Sue can continue to push the pocket from the middle, they've got a chance to improve themselves, because you can survive, especially in the regular season. You can survive off your defense. The problem is when you get into the playoffs.
Is Sue intimidating people with his dirty play and roughhouse tactics and rule breaking?
No, I think at this point, with as much as guys study film in the NFL, they've seen all the tactics. They know it's coming. How about film study? Could we show some film of like Conrad Dobler or any of these guys that maybe countered
what it
Sue?
is. In Dominican Sue, he's a great player, but you just got to maintain your composure. At some point he may do something. Kiki Alonso, I know that hit was not what everybody wanted. But he's not a dirty guy.
Right. Tell Joe Flacco that.
No, I'm just saying it happens.
Yeah, every now and then you're going to get a situation where a guy doesn't react defensively quick enough to a quarterback sliding. Yeah. I'll put it this way. Unfortunately, we're going to see something like that probably 2 more times this season.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a random guy. It is. I'm telling you, when you go into motion to drop down on somebody and make a hit and then they slide, it is extremely difficult to pull up.
Yeah.
And so do I think the hit was what some would classify as dirty? Okay. But do I think Kiko Alonso as a player is dirty? No.
And Dominican Sue, different story.
And, so we know that. But you mentioned the defense all the time.
All right, well, that's fine. Mike, do you think the Dolphins is this like a bye week, or is it an easy out?
No.
Or is it any given Sunday?
I don't think
these guys are still tough.
I don't think there's any easy out. I think they proved that this year earlier against the Bears when they dominated the game and still came up in the losing end. But put it this way: if the Panthers can't come away with a win in this one, then we have a whole new set of issues and any playoff or whatever talk. We're talking about the Dolphins with this Jay Cutler experiment here. Still have the second
minus Jay Ajayi now.
And I'll say this too.
And
unless Mercury Morris and Jim Kick and Larry Zonka are coming through, who's running the ball?
Well, let me say one more thing too to that point. And some people say, is this an easy out? We know that we, as people that watch football, know that the Panthers have a good defense, right?
Yeah.
The Panthers have 8 takeaways as a defense this year. The Dolphins have 8 takeaways as a defense. Yeah. So let's not assume it's that easy, especially with a defense that's taken the football away as many times as the Panthers have.
I don't think it's going to be easy. I think if the Panthers can't come away with a convincing win or even a win in this, they come away with a loss in this, there's a whole new set of problems, and we can stop discussing playoffs, conference championship, any of that stuff.
You talk about numbers. Dolphins have won 4 or 5 with the Panthers. So I say this, Jay Cutler played well in the loss last week. When he gets hot, he can be either good or he can be really bad.
270 yards a game they have on offense. If he gets hot, we're waiting for it.
311 yards last week against Oakland. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So all I'm saying is they lost, but that's a pretty good game in my opinion, 81%. Now, you're right. This offense has struggled, and now with Jay Ajayi gone, I'm just interested to see how this is going to play out if Jay Cutler, if we get to him early, or the Panthers, but if the Panthers get to him early, then that should bode well for the Panthers, and they've done a good job getting after quarterbacks.
And they better control Kenyon Drake because his versatility as a running back, catching the ball out of the backfield, we've seen this kid, in the return game as well. This kid has a lot of talent and a lot of versatility. They better control him as well as those 2 receivers, because if that kid can create a couple of big plays, look out. All right, Kev, so let's take a look at what the Panthers will do. Oftentimes, they'll do this out of the pistol look if they're going to go with 2 backs. They also do it out of single back, out of the pistol look or shotgun formation as well. But it's just simple variation. When you have a weapon like Cam Newton, you can play him in the zone read game and really use that to your advantage. You got a defensive tackle here and a defensive end outside, and they'll really do this reading either guy. So it doesn't matter who they're reading. It's just a matter of what they decide to do, and changing that up creates a little bit of confusion for the defense. And that's the reason why they'll switch up who they use. So they may have a situation here where here's Cam Newton, you got a back offset here, and you got a back deep. They could do this with Stu and McCaffrey on the field together, which to me is probably the best bet out of this set. You can put Stu here, McCaffrey deep. And what they'll do is they're just going to bring McCaffrey across, Stu across this way. And what that does is if they're reading this defensive tackle, if he turns those shoulders, that's all they're looking for. If he turns the shoulders, Cam's going to pull that football back out and come this way. With him comes McCaffrey. Now, it could be a defensive end that's left over here, which generally they're going to block him. So this is probably going to be an outside linebacker or defensive back type of player. And when they do that, now it's 2-on-1. So now they're trying to decide, if this guy stays disciplined 9 times out of 10, he's going here because that's his responsibility. He's going to do that right away on the snap. He's going to pitch man. Then
he's got to contain.
Side, right, he's got to contain and go to pitch man. That's the first thing he's got to do. So now this leaves Cam Newton down the middle of the field. They've got to scrape over the top with a linebacker to close that out, which hopefully your guard was able to get to the second level and make that play happen and get that guy walled off inside. Or they're going to have to rely on a safety to come down in the box and tackle.
Cam's bigger than all those guys.
He is.
And faster.
And that's the whole key. That's what they're trying to do by running this type of set, is they're trying to put you in a situation where you can't be right. Our buddy Dan Hawkins calls it conflict of assignment.
Yeah.
Talk about that all the time. If this guy comes up here, when this is going on, think about it. If he stays here and stays with the quarterback, or what the quarterback may do, and widens out, now you're going this way with Stu. And theoretically, if you've got the backside blocked properly, that becomes almost like a power play to the backside. If they've got everything cut off, he's able to either squeeze in between the guard and tackle, or he can bounce the thing all the way outside of the tackle.
And the opposite side has to have seals to where they
have to seal.
Create running lanes.
Absolutely correct. So the diversity of the offense in something like a zone read game with a guy like Cam Newton as the ultimate weapon with his ability to run the football and make decisions in the read game. The key for him, though, is he's got to be decisive, Charles, in terms of making those reads and those decisions.
Cam is like Charles. He's big, strong, fast, just a little younger. That's all.
That's right. But this offense, this particular play call, is all about being decisive in your decision-making and doing it instantaneously.
And a lot of it is ball skill. I think when you see to the mesh point, whether it's this guy in or that guy in, if Cam's here, you see how he rides him until he knows. Like if he's reading the end and he sees this end going that way, making sure the linemen have to do all their jobs. But if he sees it, what he does is he says, okay, I pull it and I go.
Right.
And a lot of times you'll see he can ride that thing for a long time, but he's still looking at that defensive end or whoever he's reading off of. Because if you go midline veer, you're going inside to the D tackle. If you're going main line or outside, you got the D end. And it's just a matter of what they're calling it on and who they're calling it against. And they've done it a lot. But you'll see the ball handling skills become really important in this as well.
And understanding who you're running this against. Sue sometimes can get out of his gap integrity and fly up the field. If he's a guy that flies up the field.
A lot of people say he doesn't have any integrity.
Well, that's fair. If he flies up the field towards Cam Newton and they give that, he's not going to be there. Cameron Wake, same thing. He's a pass rusher. If he flies up the field trying to get to that pass rushing lane and Cam Newton keeps it and comes underneath him inside, it creates a big play. So the Miami Dolphins are going to have to be very smart in terms of maintaining their discipline on the defensive front against this particular play call. If not, they're going to get hit with big plays.
Do you think if we can get some zone read and maybe get, I guess a lot of people, I would respect Cam Newton more than Jonathan Stewart. They're going to go with him. So potentially this could be a breakout game and gosh knows he deserves it. He needs it. Is Jonathan Stewart could maybe get through the line if the defense is going with Cam.
Well, that's what it does, because everybody's supposed to just do their job. If you've got dive inside with Stu or that veer look, if that's your responsibility as a defensive lineman, you've got to just do your job. If your responsibility as a defensive end is to take care of the quarterback, you've got to just do your job. What this particular play call does is it takes guys out of their mindset of doing their job and it makes them feel like they got to be a hero and make the play. And a lot of times that's where mistakes are made.
Okay, now, Buck, Reggie has expanded, and you guys have talked about this read option with Jonathan Stewart or McCaffrey and Cam running the ball. Can you pull that out and even drop back and pass out of this
when you
offense?
when you start out in the shotgun or pistol, that gives you the ability to be off the ball and really see where you're going, pull it, and if you have a design where it's a smoke route or it's a design route, it marries up, and they've been doing that a lot lately, and I think that's what they want to do.
Well, we saw a lot of that with Devin Funchess over last week. A guy Reggie's been high on since training camp, so it looked good last week. And we've got more college football now to talk about. College football, college basketball, pro boxing. Christy Martin's got a big card coming up next week. We'll talk about that and much more on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill.
I got the red team in the points.
The white team's Penn State, so they're probably losing. They've lost the last couple weeks.
Shots
What
fired
happened
for
to them?
no reason.
What happened to them, by the way? They look like they went off the deep end. Wisconsin looks good, by the way. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Reggie Walker, Mike Freer, and Charles Arbuckle. NC State continued their consistent ways. Dave Dorn insinuated that Clemson was cheating with a laptop on the sidelines. NC State fans accused of throwing debris, rocks, beer bottles, liquor bottles, anything you can think of. Reggie, you have a quick point on Alabama, and then let me hear your thoughts on NC State Clemson.
Well, let me go to Clemson first. First of all, if you look at where football is now, as sure as we have one sitting on this set right here, I've even done high school games locally here in Charlotte. There's laptops and iPads on every sideline. You know how many people are watching film? They've got guys watching film. They got guys in the booth watching film. They're breaking down stuff on. In the NFL, they have the tablets that they use on the sideline as well. So while Dave Dorn may have felt like something was going on, he's got to understand everybody's got technology on the sideline, and it's generally for them to look at things and coach their own players.
But is it supposed to be a level playing field? I agree with you. Everyone should have it or have the ability to use it. But if there's a rules prohibiting things like this, you have to abide by the level playing field and all the rules, right?
I want to see somebody cite the specific rule that says Clemson was doing something that either A, wasn't legal, or B, something that NC State did not have access to of their own volition.
A lot of speed, it looked like, on the field.
A lot of times athletes have something to do with it. NC State's a good football team. Clemson's just better.
I agree. I thought it was a really irresponsible thing for the coach to do without knowing anything other than seeing the laptop. All he could have taken care of really easily with a phone call to Clemson, find out what the story was, and if you didn't buy it then you can go and talk about it.
So here's the thing, guys. It is in the rule book. It says, according to NCAA rule book, motion pictures, any type of film, facsimile machines, videotapes, photographs, written transmission machines, and computers may not be used by coaches for coaching purposes anytime during the game or between periods. I think this is asinine in this time.
Yep.
You should be able to have something, and it should be between both schools or the universities and the NCAA. The bottom line, though, is that this should be something that you call the other coach and you say, hey, look, this is what I'm thinking. This looked like sour grapes to me from Dave Dorn.
It does.
And I think, Dabo, I like how he responded in the rebuttal. I think they've squashed it. But the bottom line is, usually coaches talk to each other or they will argue with one another, because I know that happens.
Yeah, that does.
Like everybody gets along, but don't do it in the media. And I think that's the wrong thing. I think don't put that out there if you haven't made that call and you haven't talked to Dabo, because they talk before the game. And I know they know each other. They play golf together in these ACC tournaments or ACC media days. So have that conversation away from everybody else.
And I guarantee, I'll say this, in a slight defense of Coach Dorn, before the season, people were saying if he doesn't do X, Y, Z, he's going to lose his job. When your job's on the line and you lose a football game, you start to feel a certain type of way about things, and you start looking for reasons to essentially just save yourself.
One loss could mean the difference between the Orange Bowl and the Humanitarian Bowl.
Well, NC State does not have a lock on a bowl game. They're 5-4, and
they're going to go to a bowl game.
Well, they got to find a win in one more of these
Frank
three
K
games.
would love to have them at the Belk Bowl because they draw. They're a big, despite their sports information department, they're a big-time program. They draw lots of fans. They're a well-coached ball club. They have a tremendous fan base. I'm just saying. I think the NC State Wolfpack
I like the team too.
Bring lots of people. They're like Clemson, Virginia Tech. They bring lots of people. I don't have any money.
Can I say something?
If I had $1, I bet you they'd be in any bowl game.
Hey, Kevin, I'll say
think
this
they will too.
Being in Charlotte and being in the Carolinas for 13 years now, when I first went to North Carolina State, I'm still blown away by their facilities. I just can't.
Chuck Amato did a lot of good things to help build that place.
I can't understand why they can't win. And this team right here was a team that I thought could get over that hump. I think that Notre Dame loss, you're starting to see it now. I hope these guys can hold it together because that D-line is really good. But they've got to find ways to win these kind of balls.
And everybody they lost to was pretty.
Yeah,
they had the
think
ball.
About it, Clemson and Notre Dame are good losses.
Yeah.
They're not bad losses.
I mean, they could have gone 10-2. That loss to Notre Dame, they just were beaten by better teams. Same with Clemson. They lost to South Carolina, but they had the ball on the 10 or 15 yard line with one more play to go. So
that's the one that hurt them the most.
There you go. So they're going to rule that one. We're going to come back, and then we've got more ACC football to talk about. We've got Miami, Notre Dame, Wake Forest, even Syracuse. Jeff Taylor's South Carolina Gamecocks, of all people, are on the docket next on Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Reggie Walker, Mike Freer, Charles Arbuckle stepping. He's right behind us now. He's got a text that he's getting ready to jump on the Mackey Awards conference call, first of the season. So I know there's a lot of guys that even Wake Forest has a good tight end that's on the list. Speaking of Wake Forest, Syracuse, a lot of people thought Syracuse was really going to struggle this year. They've actually won some games. No gimme Wake at Syracuse. Mike and Reggie.
Well, last time Syracuse played at home, Clemson knows all about it because they took down Clemson on a Friday night.
And Syracuse looked good against Miami.
They did. It's a much improved team. Dino Babers, I'm a big fan. I think if he stays there and he gets the time, he's going to do some really good things. That's a great place to watch a football game at the Carrier Dome. It's a tough place to play when it's packed. So Syracuse, that's not an easy game for them, for Wake, but Wake's had a really good season. This would be a really good win for them if they can go up and get it.
What do you think of Wake, Reg?
I like Wake as a football team. I love what they do. I think losing the receiver Dortch for the season is going to hurt them. He was, listen, and you guys have heard me destroy the Louisville defense throughout the season. He was electric in that ball game and had quite the duel in terms of player-to-player putting up numbers between him and Lamar Jackson in that particular ballgame. So losing him, I think, has impacted them a little bit at the receiver position. But I like what Wake does. They do a great job. Clausen, very good play caller, understands how to attack teams from an offensive standpoint. And let me tell you something about this defense. They don't look great on the hoof. They're not the biggest guys. They're not the fastest guys. They play good, sound, technique football, and they get after you because they don't make mistakes on defense. And it's really, really hard for you to create big plays. Lamar Jackson is a special character, and he did some things, especially late in that ball game. But otherwise, it is really difficult to create a big play against this defense.
I think Louisville's defense, as bad as they are, still better than their basketball program right now. Speaking of we brought up the South Carolina Gamecocks. Hosting the Florida Gators in disarray. Randy Shannon, now the interim head coach, after whatever his name is, got fired for alleging death threats. I think the Florida program's in disarray. I don't know if is Muschamp the guy down in South Carolina. Is he gonna hang around?
I think Muschamp's fine with the year he's having so far.
I think so.
They got a chance to get to 8 wins. I think he'll be all right.
What do we think about South Carolina? And is just South Carolina a better, well-managed ball club right now, and Florida in disarray with no offense to Randy Shannon, who I think is a good coach, but I think the program is spiraling out of control.
Yeah,
from the athletic director on down.
Yeah, I think with Florida, I'll say it this way, and they were really, really good when Foley was down there. Made a lot of
He's
good
still
hanging
around. That was part of the contention.
Right, he is
former coach though.
But the tough part is, and I've said this for years. When you hire somebody, you've got to understand what you're hiring and be willing to deal with that. McElwain has always been known as a personality that wasn't always the easiest guy to deal with. We know for sure that in a lot of ways Nick Saban is not easy to deal with. The administration has respected that and accepted who he is, and they just deal with it.
When you get along fine with Spurrier back in the day.
Well, and that's because Foley he understood
won a lot of games back in the day.
He won a lot of games. And sometimes you have to give somebody a chance, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. At Virginia Tech, they gave Frank Beamer a while, and they let him figure it out. And sometimes you're going to make mistakes in those first 5 or 6 years before you can figure it out. So to me, it's all about patience. But before the patience, you got to know who you're hiring. The University of Texas, when they hired Charlie Strong, they knew who they were hiring. They didn't give the patience.
I don't think they gave him a chance.
They didn't have the patience along with it, and that's what it comes to. And now you're sitting there looking at what Tom Herman is doing, and I'm wondering, would they have been any better? I think yes, with Charlie Strong there this year than Tom Herman.
I mean, it's amazing with McElwain. He took the team to a pair of SEC championship games. They weren't going to win the SEC at either point, but you were getting there. And to see it unravel in less than a year, a few months, is really remarkable.
It is.
They got good players on the roster.
They absolutely have good players. They recruit as well as anybody outside of.
They're the State University of Florida.
Yep. And it's amazing to see when the season started, who would have thought this would have been
I would have thought Butch Jones would have been out first before McElwain. Great point, Mike and Reg. But in case you missed it, before we go to a break, let's look back on Kevin Tolbert did a great job up at North Carolina looking at the tailgate guys.
On a game day, I'm waking up 5 a.m. I'm getting to site 6 a.m., making sure that we're ready to roll 5 hours prior to kickoff. How you doing this morning? Tie and tie. If you guys can get everything ready for the bell hopping, wagons and all that good stuff, I'd appreciate it, guys. The other thing you'll need to do is put those no smoking signs on each of the tents. The tents come down a lot faster than they go up.
Yeah.
So. I'm Brendan Riley, and I'm the general manager for the Atlantic region with Tailgate Guys. We're gonna get one behind this table, then one right here, and then one over in here, kind of like a U around this bench almost. I'll be out here making sure our TVs are running. I'm making sure that all of our part-time staff and bellhops are in place so that when our guests arrive, it's a smooth transition from their cars to their tents and then back to their cars when the game's over. So we're getting the last of the equipment up here for you. And then this is everything else is up and running. Running all over the place. I'll probably put a good couple of miles on these shoes today. But it always something new, and I love it a lot. Next one's gonna go right here. Third one's gonna go right here. I should wear a Fitbit so I can see how much I can walk throughout the day. I'm sure that number gets up there.
Brendan's one of the hardest workers in the company and in any company, and he's here. He hasn't stopped all day, and he's been here. He's been other side of campus. I think you've seen him. He hasn't stopped, and if you talk to any guest here, they'll tell you the same thing. He's just a pleasure to work with and enjoy each Saturday.
Yeah, so a lot of our days just getting the site up and running for all of our guests so that when they show up at 8 o'clock, nothing needs to be done for them. We just kind of roll out the red carpet, take all their stuff out of their vehicle and drop it off, and they have a great time. Put the tortillas up here. Santa, we got Santa coming.
Like legitimate, like. Yo, we really got Santa in the building.
Let me know if you guys need anything, but you guys are all ready to roll. So just come yell at us if you need something.
Great day for tailgate.
That's what I'm talking about. We like to make it as customizable as we can. So anyone can get a package starting at a basic level, just some tents, tables, chairs. And then you can start sort of building it up, making it more premium as we go. Things that we provide that give that a little bit more of a premium feel. TVs, they'll be hooked up to a dish satellite so you can watch any game that you want. We have coolers with ice, tent fans for the particularly hot days. We'll have cocktail tables, things that spruce it up a little bit and give it more of a higher end tailgate feel. So we try to give, an option or have an option for everybody, any one of our guests to make sure that they're all, well taken care of. We're really fortunate here. There's a lot of great locations on campus, for us to really provide a great level of service. So we have our main site at the Keenan Amphitheater, which is just northwest of the stadium, a 15-second walk and you're inside one of the gates. We also do some of our work at the bell tower in the quads right there underneath the bell tower. This particular weekend, we're also at Polk Place for Monogram Day with the Rams Club. And then we have a visiting team tailgate at Chapman Hall right above the Venable lot. So we're spread across campus this weekend, and that's the best part because you get to impact the most people and have a great time on game day. It took me a while to get used to waking up at 5 in the morning so that I could be here at 6 a.m. But once the guests get here and sort of the scene livens up and you start to create that atmosphere on game day, and it carries you through the rest of the day.
Yo, baby, yo, team's on.
Go Heels! Woo! Let's go Heels! When I first saw it online, I didn't really know what was going to happen and everything. I was talking with Brendan, he walked us through the process, and it's been amazing. I'm planning on doing it for many years to come.
The easiest part has been how easy it is for us, because literally I pull up like 10 feet away and I drop off all my tailgating stuff, and it's been a fantastic experience all year long.
You drop everything off, we get to see our kids walk in. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything better.
I think we provide a great service and obviously a great atmosphere. I mean, I can't beat today. I mean, the weather, just the feeling, the fans. I think everybody's having a great time. And
sorry we didn't get the win, but I had a great time out there today. It was a wonderful day tailgating with everybody. And if you haven't swung by our site and checked us out, feel free to see us, and we'll be here next season. So we look forward to seeing you.
Welcome back to Talking About Sports from the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill. Mike Freer, Reggie Walker. We were talking off air about Louisville and their shenanigans and their potentially an alleged lack of institutional control in basketball. Someone that doesn't have any institutional or lack of institutional control is Duke. They got the greatest coach in the history of college basketball, Coach K. They're going up against perennial powerhouse Elon this week. Also, Wake opening against another big team, Georgia Southern. So I'm going to go out on a limb and take Wake and Duke in these matchups. I like Duke. Give me Duke in North Carolina. I may give you the field all the way to the rest of the season, but I'm not going to take either one against the field so far. Mike, what do you look at? I don't think West Virginia's going to do that well, although I do like Bob Huggins.
Top 10 team. Top 10 team. They got the best player in the Big 12. But as far as Duke is concerned, this is the beginning of the year. They do the NBA schedule.
Yeah, what about Queens? I hear they're starting a wrestling program.
Queens is starting a wrestling program, but Queens actually just had a scrimmage against Wake Forest.
How'd they do?
They fell to Wake by 2 points.
That's pretty good.
Not sure. I was told that some of the Wake recruits may not have played. Some of their freshmen did not play much, if at all, in that ball game. But this is going to be a year for Coach Manning down there at Wake.
I think Manning's doing a good job.
He's doing a really good job. But I think right now, this is one of those years where
a tough conference.
People want to see at the end of the year 20 wins in the front and a single digit in terms of losses on the backside. I'm not suggesting that it needs to be 29-4 or something like that. But I think people are looking for
24-9. You take that?
22 kind of wins.
Absolutely.
8 losses, something like that. I think they'll take that at Wake, and I think that's what
Georgia.
this team
I'll
is good
count
enough to
Georgia
do.
Southern as one of them.
Don't count the game right after that. Don't pencil that in as a win for Wake Forest. Right up there. They got Liberty after that.
Liberty beat my Virginia Commonwealth Rams.
And they're going to have a good team this year. So
Liberty's going to be good.
It's not going to be a walk in the park.
Liberty's got great facilities, by the way. And I have noticed that UNC Charlotte doesn't sell out anymore since Bob Huggins stopped showing up. Well, that's all I'm going to say.
December 5th, Wake at UNC Charlotte.
At UNC Charlotte?
Yep.
They'll have a packed house for that. That's for sure.
I'd love to see that game.
North Carolina looks good. They're the defending champs.
And not locally. Listen, people aren't talking about. Watch out for Michigan State.
We'll
Tom
find out
Izzo,
Tuesday.
He's a great
We're
coach.
going to find out Tuesday when they play Duke. That is a good basketball team. Izzo always gives himself. Remember last year he talked about how it was his fault, the schedule that he had his team on, playing a couple of games basically outside of the lower 48 states. One on one end and
they call
one
that
on the other
subcontinent
side.
Where I'm from.
Yeah, a lot of travel. And he blamed himself. He said he vowed he wouldn't allow that to happen again. So expect Michigan State to bounce back and have a strong year as well.
It's going to be a great matchup Tuesday. Duke, Michigan State in the State Farm Classic, Champions Classic.
It's going to be a lot of size on the floor in that game, a lot of skill, some big guys that can do a lot of different things. So that's going to be a good one to watch.
I'm going to take you guys' advice and keep my eye on Queens. I think they got a good program and starting a wrestling program. My man Lincoln Smith from down at West Brunswick High School, son of my friend Chuck Smith, one of my pro wrestling friends. His son to All-State. We're looking good and looking forward to Queens wrestling. Pro boxing, Christy Martin putting on with Pink Promotions. Center stage in no time, my man, the world-class gentleman, Levante Early.
Can't wait.
Daniel D.P. Powell. Reg, you're going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to hope we get William Wilson involved somehow. Lots of action there. I love boxing. I used to work in Vegas, covered pro boxing, and I'm looking forward to this. I know you are, Reg.
Absolutely.
You're
looking forward to this one. I'm a big boxing guy. Speaking of that, I heard some rumors and some rumblings that the camps between Anthony Joshua, a heavyweight champ, the guy that knocked out Klitschko.
He's declared war.
Well, Joshua's the guy that knocked out Klitschko and took his belts. Deontay Wilder got a knockout the other day against Vermont Stavern. He destroyed Stavern.
That was a total destruction.
I'm hearing that both camps are talking about unifying the heavyweight championship early next year, so hope to see that fight happen. That would be great to hear that announcement going into what's going to be a great card featuring Levante, the world-class gentleman, early. I'm locked in. It's boxing time, baby. Let's go.
I saw Wilder hit this guy, Stavern. Is that how you pronounce his name? Mm-hmm. That reminded me of Jerry Cooney and Ken Norton. That looked like total destruction. But
yes, it was.
A guy who they say he's got knockout power, Daniel D.P. Powell. And I've seen the world-class gentleman. He's William Wilson's protege, Levante Early, at least in terms of styling and profiling, limousine riding and jet flying and all that, and with his attire.
Kiss stealing and willing and dealing?
Well, I don't know about that, but Will is, but I don't know about Levante Early. Although he has been out at Floyd Mayweather's gym in Vegas and trained. So I think Levante Early is making inroads in professional boxing. He's undefeated. He's in good camps. He's surrounding himself with good people. I really am looking forward to that's the semi-main. Daniel D.P. Powell also is in the main event. And we have a feature right now, and let's look at Daniel D.P. Powell.
My name is Daniel D.P. Powell, and the D.P. stands for Dangerous Power. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. You know, just a family man, love the sport of boxing. I got into boxing 2006 from a member in this gym at the time. His name is Daniel Easterling. I was doing some boxing exercises and he asked me if I boxed and I said I'd like to get into it, and he showed me this gym, White Rock. If I had to compare my workouts to, the military, I would say it's up there, man. I mean, I wake up early in the a.m. About 4:30. Go to the weight room in the morning about 5 o'clock, work out for about an hour and a half. After that, I do my 5 to 6 mile run, hit the bags, speed bag, heavy bag, spar, do my due diligence in the gym. The push-ups, the jump rope for a few rounds, the sparring, shadow boxing, speed bag, heavy bag. And what's most important is that road work. You have to put those miles in. As far as me having that that chip on my shoulder, I didn't really have it. I just fell in love with the sport just because of the sweet science, just slipping and moving, punching, knowing how to throw the punch correctly and everything like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's what I'm saying. Out of sight. Good, right. That's where you work there.
From going from a mild man outside the ring to an animal in the ring, it's just like a switch, man, that kind of turns on, so it's time to get the business.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, it's out of sight. That's what I'm talking. We don't mean any harm, but this young boy is in our way. We're gonna get him out of our way too. That's what the coach said. What are you gonna bring a good ass kicking up there to the young man?
I mean, Coach Gallman, as far as how he's talking, I just let him do all the talking, man. I don't really talk all like that. I don't trash talk or anything like that, man. I just let my hands do the talking.
We're gonna teach him some manners this damn time ourselves, okay?
Good coach, old school, which we like in here.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. There, that's what I want to see.
The one word that describes me in the ring is methodical, because I get in there, I'm patient, look for those openings and methodically pick you apart.
You got to find one to catch and go to work.
Records really don't matter, man. I was 11-0 at one point and I got beat, so if you take an L, it's not how you take it, it's how you bounce back.
See how I'm split the line? This foot and this foot like that.
I believe I'm gonna win, I believe I have a little bit more experience than he does. That may play a big part, but we'll see.
And we just saw DP Daniel Powell. Now let's look at the world-class gentleman in action.
So what I've been working on in particular for this fight is really just throwing punches with bad intentions. I've always been a finesse fighter. I've always been somebody that could dance my way out, dance my way in, beat you off just pure skill or just outthinking you. Now I'm getting more into throwing punches with bad intentions.
Yes!
I feel like every single camp I train a little bit harder and a little bit harder every camp. So we're bringing on new members of the team and we're adding new aspects to our training, and the mental aspect to me is the most important. So I'm continuously growing that and I'm continuously getting better. So if you're not training harder than you were your last fight, then you're not getting any better.
I'm telling you, it's different now.
I already know.
The only reason I would say that he probably got better experience with it, because he done been in the pro MMA and pro boxing.
So you got more experience with what?
Just fighting in general.
I really knew when I was meant to do this around my third fight, when I got hit with some big shots, and it really made me dig deep and come forward and throw some big shots back. After I came to the corner after that round, that's when I realized in that moment that, maybe I was meant to do this. It's not about the world championship belt. It's about the process that it took to get the world championship belt. I want to build up my career to the point where I could touch as many lives as possible in a positive way. That's my ultimate goal. If a world title is in that process, let's do it. If 3 world titles in that process, let's do it. If I'm beating all these world champions in that process, let's do it. This fight that can make me 6-0 as a professional is a big deal because it's just one more step forward. I'm fighting a 12-2 guy, more ring experience than me, but at the end of the day, this for me is just another obstacle. It's just another step in my career. No fight predictions, man. You can never. Boxing is so unpredictable. Anything can happen.
All right, great piece from Kevin Tolbert on Levante Early and Daniel DP Powell. Great night of fights. That's November 18th at Center Stage in Noda. Plenty of seats, although they are going fast right now. Fight tickets, call 704-309-1777. Tickets again, 704-309-1777. So that's going to be a tremendous night of boxing. And speaking of tremendous, not only our professional service here,
very nice.
We got wings, we got
steak nachos,
steak
baby.
nachos, Wisconsin beer cheese. Thank you very much. What is your name, dear?
My name's Antoinette.
Antoinette, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Like
Thank
Marie
you.
Antoinette?
Yes, Marie, except I'm not gonna get my head chopped off.
Okay, well, we hope not.
Yeah.
No,
At least
we're not
today.
gonna allow it.
Reg, in addition to your final thoughts, we got your steak nachos here. Reg, what do you got to our final thought?
Final thoughts, man. I'm going back to boxing. Looking forward to the card on November 18th at Center Stage. I think that's going to be a good one. We got a lot of good boxing coming up next year. Showtime Sean Porter got a win. Hopefully they can set up a fight with him and Keith Thurman next year. Get that rectified. We talked about Joshua and Deontay Wilder as well. So I think 2018, the end of 2017 here in 2018, setting up to be a good year for boxing.
I'm going to go back to college football here, to college football playoff rankings.
By the way.
You're a good man. Top 3 teams in the rankings going on the road this week. So it's more chaos could be happening. TCU's also on the road.
It's going to happen. Chaos.
I love chaos.
Miami, Notre Dame, upset. Who's winning?
I like Notre Dame.
I love Notre Dame, but I don't know if they're going to win.
I don't love Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame in this game.
Didn't they beat West Virginia in the national title?
Yeah, we don't have to go into that.
I got that keychain right there. Tony Rice, I think was right. I'm just saying, they're a better team. They got more class and dignity, and they're great guys. We love Notre Dame.
They have more class and dignity.
Absolutely, 100%. I just don't go up on the scaffold and videotape practice anytime
Oh,
soon.
did you hear that? You have more class and dignity there.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
man.
And I got a chicken wing over here, so I'm good.
He's good. So, final thought: Kevin Harvick wins at Texas. So we like the NASCAR. We're down in Phoenix, followed by Homestead. Kyle Busch is in the Final Four. Kevin Harvick's in there, and a guy who's really going to be tough to beat is Martin Truex. So lots of NASCAR coming up, and we got to thank Charles Arbuckle. That conference call with the Mackey committee must have run long. So thanks to Charles, thanks to Reggie Walker, Mike Freer, Kevin Tolbert, my man James King coming through with the beer cheese, Wisconsin beer cheese. Go Badgers, Bucky Badger. For the Dilworth Neighborhood Grill, I'm Kevin Casey. This is Talking About Sports. So long for now.
Gordon Solik.